How is everybody doing? And welcome back for another Strength Chat episode. Today, I've got a very special guest for you all. Today, I'm joined by a coach with over 20 years' experience working in the fitness industry. He's competed in everything from running and swimming to strongman. Today, I'm joined by the one and only Dan Reeves. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you, mate. Appreciate you having me on.
No worries at all. Thanks a lot for taking the time to jump on.
That's all good. All good. Yeah, let's do it.
So I know obviously I've done a little bit of an introduction there, but how are you? What's been happening in your world recently?
Yeah, no, I'm good, mate. Thank you. I'm enjoying work at the moment. Like it is good. I'm feeling like I've got good, like I'm doing purposeful, valuable work, which I'm adding value to clients, which is always good. Hasn't always, well, it's never always the case like that, but I feel like I am at the moment. And training's progressive. The weather up until today has been relatively good, and summer feels like it's coming. So yeah, no, I'm in a good spot, mate. Thank you. How about yourself?
Nice. Yeah, all good. I think I'm the same. I could do with a little bit of just more consistent sun, which would be good. Because I just think it just lifts the mood up of everyone. I think we've had too long of not very nice weather, but touch wood, it's actually looking okay today, so it should be all
Oh,
right.
well, you've
Um,
obviously got it today because we had a great day yesterday, but now it's like the it looks like the last 6 months basically have just come back today. It's just absolutely
yeah,
pouring down, but
yeah.
it's not a surprise that we're English and we're talking about weather within the first 3 minutes of a
Yeah,
conversation, is it?
yeah. Now I know obviously at the start, I mentioned, a couple of things that you yourself has competed in, but also your experience in terms of coaching. And for everyone listening who might not know how you got involved in coaching, the sports that you've done, and kind of to the point where you're at now. Just want to give a bit of a background to yourself, Dan.
Yeah, sure. I originally was a professional footballer, so that was my bag, my main sport. But I pretty much played everything as a kid, like literally, you name it. Would throw my hat in a ring and have a go at it, and it was like pretty, like generally sporty. Uh, I decided to stay on at school instead of taking up sort of apprenticeship at 16, which is probably the only regret I've ever had is not going straight into full-time football. Like those 2 years between 16 and 18, playing every day, obviously you're going to fall a little bit behind, but I'd sort of like pursued my education and stuff instead. So it meant that I didn't get offered a contract with the club that I was at. It was with Norwich, who were in the Premier League at the time. But I took a year out from before going to university and was a footballer at Colchester United for a year. My mates were sort of like off at uni then, getting drunk. I was a professional athlete. Didn't really realize what I had at the time. Didn't really take it seriously. So in the end, just ended up going right. Okay, this is not for me. It was my first real job, uh, and yeah, just went to playing sort of semi-professionally. Went to university, did my sports science degree, and then from there, like during the actual time that I was actually at university, I began working in a gym in Kensington in London, and just through speaking with people on the gym floor, etc., building those relationships, started to take on a few clients and ended up doing the PT course. And from there, it sort of like just rolled into becoming a coach. I never planned on it. Like I thought because of my background, I'm very data and numbers driven. I did maths and science and physics at sort of like school. I thought I might go into business, like into accountancy or something along those lines. But like coaching started to like just fall the way that I like sort of my career sort of started to go. My parents, like we always joke about it, like they always used to say to me for probably the first 10 years of being in London was like, when are you going to get a real job? Uh, but it sort of transpired over a period of time that this was the real job, and it sort of like created itself into a career as you do. And yeah, I worked in London for 13 years, traveled for a year, like did some coaching in Australia, like seeked mentorships in Australia with friends and helped them set gyms up, and went to the States afterwards, and then came back, worked in an S&C facility in Portsmouth, which is very different to London, where it's very much Gen Pop clients. Started to work more with athletes and powerlifters, strength athletes, etc. And from there, went up to Manchester. Started working again in a very different facility, which was more bodybuilding, transformations, those types of things. Set up my own gym like alongside that at the time, which was then small group training, which I'd sort of like seen and developed really, really well in Australia in the sort of like mid 2010s.
Yeah.
So we set something up ourselves. And then off the back of that, my wife was always, I met my wife whilst I was in Portsmouth. She's from Cornwall and she wanted to move home. So we ended up coming back to Cornwall. That's where sort of like the online work started to go off then. So that was before COVID. So I actually almost adapted a little bit before that. So I was in a good position for when COVID obviously happened, uh, to sort of take on more online clients and stuff. And then since then, I still work like in person with a football team, like being the sort of like assistant manager slash S&C coach. And I'm now part of a great team, which is called the High Performance Coach, where I look at the sort of like programming, the coach development aspect, education of like helping coaches become better coaches, whilst the rest of the team help them develop their businesses. And I have a few like clients online still as well, but not so many, which is more my high level athletes like uh, powerlifters, like strongmen, etc. And then just high level gen pop sort of endurance athletes as well. So yeah, I've got a broad spectrum. I've like you said, I have done quite a lot of things, having been a professional athlete. I've done a lot of endurance challenges, like crazy stuff, like a Deca Ironman, 10 times the distance of a normal Ironman. I've done normal Ironmans, half Ironmans, 5 or 6 days of the Tour de France, like in terms of the amateur stuff, like raced over crazy distances on the bike, done 24-hour challenges, 100 kilometer ski ergs, uh, got into strength sports. I've done sort of like strongman where uh, like won regional titles, East Midlands strongest, London strongest, uh, Northern England strongest. Then went to the British Championships a couple of years on the trot. Went to the World sort of Natural Strongman Championships. So yeah, like I have got a full array of like in terms of things that I've done. I always try to preach and practice what I preach. I'm someone who wants to walk the walk as much as talk the talk. I want to know why I'm doing things, but then I also want to show people this is like I want to speak from experience in terms of look, this is how you do it as well, and I'm going to show you how you do it. And I'm not just talking from a textbook scenario. I've actually been in those situations at the same time. So yeah, uh, been around a long time, done a load of things. My body's paying for it. My mind is paying for it a little bit, but still fucking loving it, mate, and still as passionate
Yeah.
as ever.
Nice. And I know, I suppose maybe a little bit of tangent on this, but as you were talking there, you mentioned, as a kid, throwing your hat into the ring would give anything a go from there. And then from the coaching side, but also from the competitive side, quite an array of things, experiences, powerlifting, strongman, body transformations, elite sport to the events that you've done yourself. And, pretty successful at those. Do you think that how you've done one thing, the mindset going into it, wanting to understand it, wanting to do it well, your approach to that has allowed you to have that success? Because you do hear about people doing a lot of other things, but maybe haven't had a success of it, or they think, oh well, I can't do this. I'm just gonna focus on one thing and never try anything else. But from what you've done there, to do those from the coaching world and the competitive world, having that success there and having that experience, is it a case of you wanting to actually do a good job of that, get that experience, is what's allowed you to be successful, if that makes sense?
Yeah, no, 100%. Like if I commit, I'm going to be the best I can be at that particular thing. And I don't really like, I profess and I talk about like hybrid training, being a hybrid athlete. For me, being a hybrid athlete is like being able to throw your hat into any ring as and when. But if I'm completely honest, when I've achieved the things that I've achieved, they've taken me a long time because I'm not someone who wants to just do it for the sake of doing it. If I'm doing it, I want to be in the top 1%. And like the the journey, the strongman journey is the one that I'm most proud of purely because I'm not built for that. Like I was a footballer, I'm an ectomorph. Like I'm not naturally strong. I'm 6 foot. I was competing at under 80 kilos. That's like I was like a monster size wise in terms of height, in terms of the category that I'm competing with. As you can imagine, from a powerlifting standpoint, you don't get many 6 foot under 80 kilo guys. They're normally like square, they're as wide as they are tall. But what I was willing to do in an amateur sport, I was going to be a professional. I was a PhD in terms of, look, how can I best manipulate this particular object to get the most reps out of it or to get the heaviest load that I can possibly get from me. And in an era where I probably got into it at just the right time before it became big, like strongman now is pretty fucking big. It's like
Yeah.
taking over. And I could not go in there, don't get me wrong, although I'm 44, so I definitely couldn't. But even now, even if I was back in my 30s, there's no way I could compete with these guys now. Like I competed with a guy called Dean McVie, who's in the OSG. He's always one of the ones who's at the top. He's been British strongest man a few times. Uh, I was competing with him at the time, and it was competitive. Now, I'd get absolutely blown away I wouldn't even become close. But I was just more professional. I was breaking things down to the ninth degree. Like I said, I wanted to work out what was optimal. I was willing to take my nutrition more seriously. I was willing to take my recovery more seriously. I was getting more sessions in. I wouldn't train if I was injured or I had niggles. I'd do it right from the background that I had in professional sports. I was bringing that into the world where people weren't doing those things. It was just like, right, go max out today on what you can do, go as far as you can, what you can do, lift
Yeah.
as much as what you can do for as many reps, and then you're broken for a week and you don't recover. Whereas I'm hitting 5, 6, 7 sessions per week. These guys are hitting 1, 2 sessions because they just can't recover from it. So it was just a bit smarter at a time when it was probably still a little bit amateur.
Yeah, I think like what you've said there, training smarter. You've said there about the recovery side of things because even from the powerlifting side of things, the people are or athletes are being a lot more professional with it, even though there's a lot of sports that are, amateur, but how they I really like what you've mentioned there is having that professional approach to it because, there is still people wonder why they're like flash in the pans or they pick up injuries or they can't keep continuing progressing or getting better because they're picking up injuries and um I can't remember who said the phrase but it was either from football or rugby and it's your best player is the ones where they play all the time they get more minutes you want your
Yeah,
best
yeah.
players on the pitch whereas if they're not doing well in the gym or they're pushing too hard there's no point having one of the best players in the world or having or being one of the best athletes in the world if you're not competing, um, if you're not being able to, get those minutes on the pitch, which I think, even though we want to maybe try different things, like what you've said there, if you're going to do it, right, I'm going to try and do the best that I can to progress from there. From a coaching point of view, because you said at the start about, not just saying things out of a textbook that you've actually got that experience to be able to with the athletes clients that you're working with look this is the approach that you can do and talk from experience how has that kind of impacted your coaching maybe service or style or how you get results with your clients but also being able to help that client problem solve and find out what is it they actually need to have success.
I think straight away, like the biggest thing, and like just going back to the quote that you're talking about, we talk about this a lot. The best ability anyone can have is availability.
That's it, yeah.
Like, yeah, availability is literally doesn't matter about speed, strength, whatever. If you're not available to play on a pitch or to go to competition injury free, like feeling great, then you're going to struggle straight away. From like having done the things that I've done, what it allows me to do is get buy-in very early. Like a lot of people like what separates some coaches from others is that like if you look the part, people are going to listen to you a little bit more. If you've done the things as well, then straight away the momentum that I can gather is quicker than a lot of other coaches that I see. Straight away, there's a different level of potentially respect. Whereas sometimes people might question it. Like athletes, if we're just talking athletes rather than sort of general population people here, even big time business owners, they have egos, and if straight away they're already like respectful, then the initial steps that you can get within the first 1 or 2 weeks, we know are so important because if you can gain momentum, then you've got more buy-in. I almost have that slight more buy-in from day one that potentially others who haven't maybe walked the walk of the things that people are trying to achieve, they potentially haven't got. And then, as you mentioned, like just being within the industry and like having taken tens of thousands of sessions, when you've seen different people how they move, when you've worked with different personality types, when you've had conversations and you've traveled and you've seen different things, what it allows you to do is like it allows you to pick up people's limiting factors earlier. It allows you to see because you've experienced so much more, and like this is not something you can't hold that against anybody. It's just something that comes with time, and that's why one of the most important things I say to younger coach, just stay in the game, like stay in this game. Like this is a career that can pass you by, and you will have ups and downs with it over time. But if you can stay in this game, your authority will massively grow over time by you just being around more and more people, and you'll speak with greater confidence to them at the same time. But yeah, like what you see is then you've like rather than sort of like trying to put into the pot the like hammering the square peg into the round hole, you've seen different square pegs,
Yeah.
you've seen different round pegs, you've seen triangular pegs, you've seen chipped triangular pegs, you've seen big triangles and big squares and small triangles. So therefore, it just allows you straight away to see the thing that like potentially it takes somebody a few more weeks to see a little bit earlier, and then you can just address that because we all know all we're trying to do is work on whatever the limiting factor is for that person, get that out of the way, and then you're trying to find the next one. What's stopping them now? What's stopping them now? What's stopping them now? And like it's just a game literally of just trying to consistently trying to find that one thing. And the faster you can do that on the basis, the better results you can get, the more momentum you gain, the more buy-in you gain, and then we're on a massive snowball effect then going forwards.
Yeah, yeah, I like what you've mentioned there because I talk a lot about the so my role has changed slightly. So I do the training with the so we've got a gym in Guiseley and a gym in Wetherby, and I train the trainers. So we have weekly training, and it is that thing, you build that momentum, and that's the same with clients. I really like that word because then that way it's moving forward. From a client's point of view, we've said they're athletes, high performing gen pop clients. Do you often find that sometimes when they're coming to work with you, the problem that they're coming with, or what they want to achieve, or what they think is their problem, do you think sometimes it's actually not that, and you kind of uncover other things? Because sometimes it's a case of, right, I want to do this, and this is what I'm really struggling with. Where actually you do your fact finding, you speak to them, do the consultation, then it's actually, oh well, no, actually this is what you want, what you want to be, and how is kind of your approach to put that across to them, and does that help even more with buying?
100%. Like a lot of the time you'll find that there's other issues that are going on or there's other things that really underlying is the real reason that they've come to you in the first place. And it's a case of like you have to manage that and you've got to be careful with that. You've got to be considerate with how you're going to address that with the particular people. Like you said, you might be the only person who's that on that supportive role with like for some people, like there might not be anybody else in their life who is willing to help them in this way or is supporting their sort of journey in terms of bettering themselves and becoming the best they could possibly be. So you've got to address that with care. And the conversation has to be, look, I completely understand this is what you want, and but also we're going to give you something that you need, like that I feel that you need. And like down the line, you're going to slowly manipulate it to actually more of what they need as things go. And they'll address that as you start to educate them more and as they understand more that actually this might be the limiting factor or this might be the thing that's holding them back. And actually, although they've come to you with this thing, when we actually dig a bit deeper, then it probably is actually the thing that we're talking about. And we've experienced that you'll know yourself that you probably can see that from minute one. But what we've got to realize is that we are a service industry. This person is paying us to, and if this is the thing that they're asking for, then you've got to make sure that you're giving them the result that they actually want.
Yeah.
because that's what they're asking for.
Mhm.
Whether that's actually what they need is another thing. And like I said, that's where the education of the coach and like you being empathetic and you understanding, but then you also taking them on a journey down the line to actually undercover for them to almost see it themselves that that's what they need, rather than you saying, look, being a bit more of a dictator and going, look, I know you've come to me wanting to get a bigger squat, but actually you've got a bit of a fucked up relationship with food here. Therefore, that's probably your issue.
Yeah,
Like we've got to be careful with those things. You can't say that to somebody, and like you obviously
yeah,
wouldn't never say that to somebody. But what you can do is you can make them realize that along the way as we go forward, as you go forward with the coaching process.
yeah. You said there about obviously as a journey, and what I liked what you like people are coming for results. They want to see this result. Early on. Speaking to coaches and trainers who are like early on in their careers, if you like, do you think that's sometimes where they can struggle because they're kind of getting clients and wanting to get that result, but they know that they need to add that, and it kind of causes too much confusion, and they end up just giving the athlete what they want all the time rather than actually addressing those problems. Do you think that's kind of an area where newer trainers or less experienced trainers struggle a little bit?
Oh, 100%. I've definitely been in that category before when I first started. Like I can remember sessions where I've been dictated to what's going to actually happen within the session. It's like, right, okay, this is the session I've got planned today. Oh no, I don't want to do that today. Can we do this instead? Yeah, yeah, sure, absolutely. Let's just do that instead. Because you're just trying to please and you just want to like, and at the end of the day, there's nothing wrong with that to a degree. It's just like at the time you maybe just don't have the confidence to actually hold your ground. And also you've got to realize that sometimes actually that is what the person needs at that particular moment. Like sometimes I've definitely had times before where it's been like, do you know what? We're not going to train today. Let's just go sit down, let's have a coffee and let's have a chat about like just the stuff that's going on. And this is probably going to be better, more beneficial for you than actually going and flogging yourself for an hour, which is what we would normally do, etc. So yeah, like I'd always say, like I touched upon it before, the client is never wrong because they're paying you. This is a service industry. We are providing a service, therefore they're never wrong, but they are. They
Yeah.
are at the same time. So and when you're early on in your career, you haven't got you probably don't have the confidence to sometimes stand up to those situations and just go, it's going to be always going to be a balancing act in terms of giving you a little bit of what you want, but also with a little bit of what you need. How about let's do a little bit of that and let's put a little bit of this in there. And when you're working actually in person with people, then that's what you're going to have to do considerably more of. And like online, it's a little bit different because you get like you're going to be passing sessions across, and people are going to, and then they're just going to do whatever they want anyway. Like they've still got the choice, haven't they? They still don't have to follow what they've got. And let's be honest, the likelihood is when I write that 401 tempo, I write 401 because I know they're probably going to do two anyway. So therefore, I'm purposely going to slow down those eccentrics because I know they're probably going to do it anyway. And that's just a case of again, like seeing, having that experience, having that understanding of knowledge down the line. And when you're a young coach, when you're new to the industry, you just don't know yet. And you've got to go through those things. Like I've tried, and like the role that I'm in now, I'm much more of a mentorship role, looking like speaking with and helping and trying to develop like 100 plus coaches that we have working with us. And like as much as I try to say, look, this is what's happened, this is what I've done, this is the lesson that I've learned, you still have to let them go through those moments anyway, like you would with your child. You've still got to let them fall over. They've got to learn themselves. Like you can't just skip that lesson and go, look, I know this is the answer, therefore have the answer. It's like actually go fail, go
Yeah.
understand, and then let's quickly address this because if we can have the conversation about it, then we can move on much faster rather than potentially when I first went through it, it might have taken me a bit longer to actually see the lesson. I'm actually then addressing the lesson very quickly, and then they can actually move on to the next lesson a lot faster.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think one thing that people maybe struggle with is that mistakes are okay. It's all right to make mistakes. One of the big things. So before I started being a personal trainer, being a coach, I actually worked as a tree surgeon for a little bit. Well, I was kind of like a labourer for a tree surgeon company. And I always remember there was a guy I was working with, and he actually taught me some really good lessons. And I ended up making quite a lot of mistakes. And then he'd be like, "Well, have you tried it this way?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's a lot better." And I think that's a good approach because he was really at the time. I was thinking, bloody hell, he's helping allowing me to make loads of mistakes. But then he would say, look, try this way, and then next day on the job, I'd be like, oh yeah, this is actually way better. And I think the another word that I like using with the trainers that I help, but also the clients is like just being more efficient. You end up being more efficient at what you're doing and refining it a little bit more. When you said there about changing the tempo, why I laughed there as well. I actually had this conversation on Monday with a client, and I was like, oh, 4 seconds. I don't think I've been doing 4 seconds, and I was like, yeah, no, that's why I put it there. So if you're doing that, I feel as though I'm not going too far wrong if that's happening. But with that, changing because again, I'm smiling to myself. I've changed sessions to be like, yeah, yeah, no worries, we can do this in terms of where that fits, we said there about their journey, their progression towards their goals. How does that, or how have you adapted or tweaked or changed how you fit that into your plan or the plan that you have for the client or athlete? Because there's going to be some days where it isn't going to be the best, especially with, business owners, high performers. There might be times where the plan needs to change, but there is still some form of plan there. How do you kind of adjust, change that, or allow for that to be incorporated in the plan?
Yeah, I think you always have a framework, but then you realize that on a day-to-day basis, everything could get knocked out of the way and could get completely changed. Like things happen in people's lives, and I don't necessarily like it's like a conversation like talking about like deloads and things like that. The general population don't really put deloads in because they naturally just deload themselves anyway. They'll naturally have holidays, they'll have moments when things happen with family, etc. And I just think that's something you just got to take care of. So therefore, it's like, right, here's the plan. The timelines just get adjusted. The timelines just get dragged out a little bit. And then it's just a conversation in terms of, look, if this is what you want to do when you first came to me, it's having the conversation of like, when you first came to me, this is what you wanted the goal to be. So just understand that if we change today's session, then obviously that's gonna maybe not take it a step backwards, but it's not going to take it a step forwards. And if you're happy with that, then I'm happy with that as at the same time as well. But just understand, it's just being clear. It's just making sure that expectations are managed. This is one thing that I feel like that coaches from day one can sometimes get a little bit not maybe not wrong, but it can cause us the biggest grief is that our expectations and the expectations of the clients can be mismatched, that we can be seeing from different hymn sheets. And I think that's something that if you can make it very, very clear the expectations, the sacrifices, the more of the things they need to do of, the more things they need to do less of from day one, then one, you've like covered your own back in terms of like, this is where we're going, this is what I'm expecting, this is what you're sort of like signing up to. Uh, it can be a much, much clearer and safer and happier journey rather than you actually wanting the goal more than what the client wants the goal.
Yeah.
Because if the things that they're actually wanting to commit to are just unsustainable, but they can't, they see something, they want it, but they don't understand that the habits and the behaviors and the sacrifice they need to make to actually achieve it, then actually from day one you're already seeing from different hymn sheets. So you're expecting something as a coach because they've told you they want that 200 kilo squat, whatever. It's like, right, well, that's going to take you 5, 6 years from where you're at right now. So that means you need to be very, very consistent every single week, turning up, doing this. Otherwise, that's 5, 6 years becomes 7, 8, 9 years, whatever it happens to be. It's like, or if it's just like, I want to lose 5 kilos, 6 kilos in these next 12 weeks, it's like, right, if you want to do it in that time frame, 100%, it's definitely doable. But there's no leeway here to do this.
Yeah.
Therefore, these are the habits and behaviors we need you to do. Are you willing to commit to that? Can you see, like when I show you this, can you see that? Yes, I can see that. Can you actually do that? Can you get 7 to 8 hours sleep a night? Like, are your kids not going to wake you up? Can you commit to these 4 sessions per week? Can you go and do 10,000 steps, whatever it happens to be? Are you able to have protein at every meal, or are you in the canteen where potentially you can't do that? Like, it's important that those expectations are bang on, that we're both on singing from that same hymn sheet. Otherwise, straight away, like you and I can be getting frustrated because they're not doing what they said when actually they didn't actually realize what was expected of them. Therefore, like like it's actually us wanting it more than what they wanted. Actually, they're quite happy with actually this level of progress that they're making right now. So on that day to day, like we just have to be like quite malleable and quite like adaptive on the fly as and when, but then also making sure that the conversations are being had to educate, to make sure that they either understand what the implications of what we're doing are and what the fact that we're not following the plan now. Then I think everyone's happy with that to a degree. uh I tend to work with less people who are like that now, just because of like where I'm at and where I'm at with my
Yeah.
career and who I tend to work with. But I still have a couple of people like that in my own ranks, because as a coach, it's important for me to make sure I'm staying present with the people that I'm mentoring as well.
Mhm.
So, and also as well, just to keep your knives sharp, to make sure that you're actually staying on point and that your coaching skills are being there. Because, like in so many different industries, you can get to a point. My wife's a teacher, and she says teachers pretty much after 4 or 5 years, they don't get any better. That's as far as they actually get in terms of their skills and getting better as a profession. Most teachers just sort of like then stagnate. And for me, that scares me. It scares me as an athlete, not getting better, although I'm fighting the aging battle. But it scares me as a coach to just be this, thinking that this is the best that I can be. I need to be continually trying to raise those levels and standards of the industry as far as I'm concerned, and leading the way for everyone who I'm either having as a client or having as athletes working underneath me. They need to see progress in me because I'm the leader.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I buy into that. I buy into that quite a lot. Interestingly, my girlfriend's a teacher. She's actually in a first year of teaching. Before that, she worked in bars and for like Leeds Council, and she actually did training for people in the council and training when she worked in restaurants, basically how to like work for the restaurant or work for the council. And interestingly, you say that about, some teachers maybe not progressing or learning new skills. She brought in some other things that some teachers hadn't heard of, who had been teaching for like 10 years. And you'd think after 10 years of teaching, you'd have loads of different playbooks to be able to use. And yeah, she was quite surprised about, oh, well, have you not tried this before? Because, going back to what we spoke about at the start, it's problem solving, and that's all coaching training is. It's teaching in some form, and you need to have a lot more playbooks there to be able to help. But also, I'm a big fan of like what you mentioned there in terms of keeping your tools sharp, not getting complacent. And two things that you mentioned there in terms of communication and frustration. I think listening is really important, as that's part of that communication, so you can understand what the client, what the athlete needs. And do you feel like sometimes um, a lot of coaches, a lot of trainers, they see whatever their sport is or what their training is, and just try and put their style on to the client, and not let the client explain, look, this is what I want to do, and then they kind of forget what the client's problem is, and just be like, well, no, I do this, so you can do this, and try and do like a blanket approach to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And like there's a difference between having your own style and then also like forcing that style onto somebody. Like if so, like I think one of the best things we can do is have a network of people around us who have different qualities and skills, to make sure that if someone, it's not a wrong thing to actually say, look, do you know what? There's somebody better than me who's going to be better suited to you, and passing clients on. And I think within the industry, and I understand it, everyone needs to earn money and everyone needs to survive, etc. But sometimes it's actually the best thing you can do for the client in this service industry is actually just to pass them on to somebody who's better suited. Like, not everybody is going to be your perfect client. It's going to be within your sort of remit, who's going to want to achieve the things that you uh, enjoy. And we all have our biases. We all have our biases to styles of training. And again, that's okay. But the client is the paying, like I'm always come back to it. The client is the person who's paying you. So they, I, I think I mentioned it earlier. It's like the client's never wrong,
Yeah.
but but sometimes like you have to realize that actually you can do this. There's plenty of ways. Like the principles don't change within strength and conditioning. There's plenty of ways to skin a cat, and actually incorporating some of the things or trying to incorporate the things that the client is saying to you is a great way, is a great way to do that. And it's important, like particularly as young coaches, you can get set in your ways in terms of this is how I do it and this is the only way to do it. And I think you can be a little bit more pragmatic as you get older, as you mature, etc. Where actually, okay, let's try in different ways. Let's use different ways. Let's use different techniques. There's plenty of ways I can get the same outcome out of this from that particular client and do it in a way that they are enjoying and they're having fun with uh, at the same time as well. So yeah, and like I think you, like you mentioned earlier, you've got previous experience. You've done as in you didn't come into this industry as a coach. Like that teaches you other things as well. And I think it's important, like you mentioned with your wife, like she's done different jobs before. My wife was a chiropractor before she was a
Right.
teacher, and they have different like you have different viewpoints. You're coming from different angles. You like it's important like as much as we have so many different areas as coaches, particularly as strength coaches or as PTs, where you've got to be good at. You've got to understand anatomy, biomechanics. You've got to understand nutrition to a degree. You've got to understand physics, like forces. You've got to understand all of these different areas, and you've got to study them. And yeah, you've got to level up all across the line and keep doing that. There's also so many different things that you can go and learn outside of this. And one of the biggest things is just having people skills and being able to communicate,
Yeah.
like being able to get on with people, understand people, because we know the ones who are going to get the best results, the ones who are going to be consistent enough.
Yeah.
Therefore, if you can't communicate with somebody, they don't start to buy into you because you can't actually get across to them that this is worth doing, like for us as a team. Then you're not going to go anywhere. You can have the greatest like education in terms of as a strength coach or whatever. Why is someone going to do it though when you're just literally a walking textbook with no personality? Like it's just not going to happen. That's
Yeah.
why when you've actually done other jobs, well, some of the best coaches that I see are people who've done other things before they've got into coaching.
Yeah. With that, when we're talking about communication, what has influenced, over your career, your communication? How have you kind of, developed your skills, your coaching skills? Because I always like to ask that question in terms of, has that been an influence from there? Sometimes reading or doing other things, or sometimes just just having that experience on the gym floor, actually going out and speaking to people at different. We had two clients at a powerlifting competition over the weekend, speaking to other coaches, speaking to other people within that environment. It's developing those skills. How have you kind of developed or refined your communication skills, if you like?
Yeah, I think again, like spending 13 years, well, not even 13 years, like pretty much 17 years working on gym floors, taking tens of thousands of sessions, working with everything from your nurses, your doctors, your policemen, to your celebrities, to your professional athletes, to your royalty. Like literally, it's across the board. It's working. Like I have no fear or trepidation of sitting in a room with anybody.
Yeah.
Like I'm confident that I could have a conversation at any table in any bar or any like dinner party in the world. And that's from one, dealing with loads and loads and loads of different people and personalities, but also as well traveling and having experience, getting yourself into fucking weird shit situations in different countries, etc. at the same time as well. Like it's been interesting. Like I just think people have just become fucking boring fuckers. I just think they don't do things anymore. They don't they don't put themselves out there. They don't like everyone's. And I get it to a degree. Like I'm lucky enough to have grown up in a world with before social media. Therefore, people haven't seen the stupid things that I've done. But it's also it's like you've got to go and do that. You've got to go and like have experiences. So then you've actually when you then want to talk about things and you can relate to them and you can then have these like shared moments of where you've done things maybe separately, but actually you've both been there in those times where you've had similar things. Like you've gone through experiences and like, that's massive in terms of communication. Like that helps you when you're struggling to find a toilet in the middle of nowhere. Like that helps you when you've got to try and communicate, and you understand body language to a different degree when someone's trying to hold it, when someone's holding it in. No, but but do you know what I mean? You understand body language, you can read situations, and I think it's a bit lost in this day and age, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
Like people are happy in their own little worlds without not stepping out of them. And I think it's great when you said that you've got clients who, when they're at powerlifting meets, that they go and chat with other people, they go and interact with other people. Because I see more and more people sitting there with the headphones on their own,
yeah,
like not getting involved, going lifting, then coming back and going sitting back with their headphones again. Once it's finished, they just leave and it's done.
yeah.
It's like, do you have a great day? Yeah, I had a great day. Yeah, like PB, blah blah. Oh, did you meet some new people? No. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah. I
look,
think
go
it.
network.
Yeah, I think it for me. I think it's good to it like settles nerves a little bit because everyone's in the same position. Do you know what I mean? I don't think it's yeah sitting in the corner. You want to don't know whether feel at home is the right phrase, but yeah, you want to feel comfortable. Nerves are good, nerves to be expected, but yeah, go speak to other people, and feel comfortable. And actually, when saying about that, about experiences, it goes back to that buy-in, experiences of competing in different things, but also as coaches, people buy into people, and if you can relate to them, I'm a big believer in that's what's going to allow you to get the best out of them because you know how to speak to them, you know how to understand right how what's going on in their life, so then that way it's within that plan that you can go from there. How does that kind of go towards that training awareness and that intent in training as well? Because I know that can vary person to person. Sometimes people coming in just right, we're gonna just absolutely smash it, but that might be dependent on where they are in what the client's going on in their life. Can they actually commit to that? What's kind of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, again, like I think that's something you, as a coach, you can quickly start to see the personality type and what they're going to be like. Like we've probably, as there's probably a lot of coaches listening to this, we've all had the clients uh, who lift the same weight every week for a month and then suddenly jump up 50% and realize actually they should have been jumping up before that. And like you're going to have those people, and you're going to have the guy who comes in every single time and tries to literally PB every single session as well. And it's just an educational thing, like, and it's just a time thing as well. It's like realizing that I always talk about there's levels to what people need to know. And most of the time when you're queuing or when you're talking about intent, it's a need to know basis. Uh, when people start to show interest, then I'll give them more information. But until then, I only want to I only want to give them minimal effective dose to get them to the next level, and then I'll tell them the next thing that they need to know. Then I'll tell them the next thing that they need to know, because there's no point taking them 10 steps down the line with a cue or with a particular way of manipulating things when actually there's going to be something very very simple that's going to get them progress
Yeah.
to the next level, rather than wasting something that's going to take them sort of 10 levels down there, and which we could use down in the future when it's more um yeah just more inclined with where they're at that particular time. So yeah, I love seeing the differences in the way people come into gyms and how they interact with them and how they push themselves. But I just think as you get more and more experienced, as your training age develops, as you spend more time within the gym and on the gym floors, you intuitively start to understand the level of intent and the level that you need to be coming at. Like, don't get me wrong, personality types are always going to be there, and you're always going to be on a spectrum in terms of you're going to be pushing more or you're going to be slightly more reserved. But I think rather than being at extremes, when you come in, when you first are at the gym, you're at one end or the other. I think over time you actually become still slightly skewed that way, but actually you're more towards the middle, which in most things in life, the balance, you're going to be closer to the middle as where you get the best performance, rather than being to the extremes anyway. You're going to be one way or the other, but you're probably going to be more towards the middle than the extremes when you first come in anyway.
Yeah, and I think as well with that, I think sometimes people need to fluctuate between one end to the other, and then settle in the middle. Similar to like making mistakes, that's where people are going to make that happen, and then be like, all right, okay, so I need to do I won't do that again. It's a little bit similar to I had a guy come in last week, and he hadn't ate before his training. Didn't let me know that he hadn't ate. And then he just felt really queasy. And at the end of the session, I was like, well, it only needs to happen once. Something like that
Yeah.
only needs to happen once. Not feel that good. And then yeah, it won't happen again. It's that reminder, reminder of that. And with the when people are coming into the gym, and dependent on what they're doing, as you get older, as you get more experience, probably the mindset around training is going to change, and you can know when to push a little bit more, when to hold back a little bit more, and identify that those problems that might be outside of the gym. All right, okay, cool. So that's where I need to maybe address them a little bit more. Um, Quite a lot of topics covered there, Dan. Couple of tangents thrown in there as well. But
It's good.
the last question that I like to ask, from everything that we've chatted about there, what would be your take home points or words of wisdom?
Yeah, I think from a coaching standpoint, it is just remembering that the client is the person who's paying you. This is a service industry at the end of the day, and that always needs to be brought back into the equation in terms of where you're going, what you want to do, what they want to do, and keeping their sort of like thoughts, goals, feelings at the forefront of your mind when you're making decisions in terms of where we're going to go from here. Uh, as we sort of both touched on, like coaches have their biases, coaches have their wants and their needs, but actually remember it's actually the client who's actually paying you, and it's important to just to never forget that fact and to uh, keep that the goal, keep the goal the goal.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the analogy that I think that's a good roundup of what we've chatted about there. The analogy that I actually used was it was one of the first bits of training that we did at the start of the year. It'd be like if you went into a restaurant and you ordered a steak, but they actually brought you fish and chips. It'd be like, well, that's not what I wanted. Like I wanted steak, And I think analogies like that, where you can see in the head, like this is what they want. Yes, if it's like a really nice steak and they're saying it's well done, no, you need this rare because this is how you're going to get the flavors from it or whatever it
Yeah,
may be. You can give suggestions like that, but ultimately, that we need to help and go from there, which comes from, what we've spoken about in terms of communication, planning, having that honesty, having that buy-in, and making sure that you're building up your knowledge and experience as a coach in the background. Thanks a lot, Dan, for taking the time to jump on. Been really looking forward to chatting with you. If anyone has any questions about what we've chatted about today, see the content that you put out there, or reach out to you, where could people find you or reach out to you?
yeah. I Instagram's the main one, which is Coach Dan Reeve, and yeah, you can also see some of our stuff, which is at the High Performance Coach as well. Yeah, really appreciate it, mate. Thank you so much for your time. Really great chat. Actually, like something different today, and like real sort of like coaching talk, which is great.
Nice. Well, no, glad you enjoyed it. Thanks a lot for taking the time to jump on. Thanks a lot to everyone listening, and I will see you all next week.